Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm John.
I'm Linda.
Charles.
I'm Audie.
I'm Katie.
I'm Joshua.
And we're very pleased and happy to have Katie and Josh with us today. They've actually been on the show before separately, so it's nice to see them together on the same show for a change. And we're going to be talking about a couple of favorite things that we've been watching during the times that we've been quarantined here during this COVID pandemic. We'll be talking about the new series Upload, Tales from the Loop, and What We Do in Shadows. So I guess we'll go ahead and kick it off with Upload. So let's do a quick show of hands here. How many have watched the series Upload on Amazon?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so just about almost half. Well, just a little over half. Okay, so for those that haven't seen it, Upload is about a gentleman that is in a car crash, and he doesn't realize it, but the car crash has been orchestrated to get rid of him because there's this major monopoly that has this Afterlife software where you can upload your consciousness into this virtual reality, but it's very expensive. And so typically only the very well-to-do do it. If you're not so well-to-do, they do have like a budget plan you get on, and you can upload your consciousness into the budget plan, but you're limited to 2 gigs of data per month. And when you hit that limit, you freeze. Your avatar just freezes in place. And a lot of times as you get towards the end of that limit, certain things will happen, like in your room that you're in, your window that looks out onto this beautiful lake just goes to a blue screen, and it says, to restore your view, please pay blah, blah, blah. So it's the whole series is kind of like a satirical look at late-stage capitalism. And so Linda's showing a kind of a picture there on the screen, and this is like the what Afterlife looks like if you're in the simulation. So there's that big hotel there, and that's where everybody checks in, and there's tens of thousands of people living in the hotel. Now, even though the hotel only looks like it's 4 or 5 stories, it's actually virtually an unlimited number of stories. And so anyway, this poor guy that gets uploaded there, he doesn't have a lot of money, but his girlfriend, her father is very wealthy. And so she's pretty much paying his way. So he'll be walking through and living in this virtual reality simulation, and every so often something will pop up and it'll say, try the new AT&T Taco Bell Gordita, only $5.95, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like a little bubble hovering in the middle of their world, and he has to like left swipe it to get rid of it or something like that. And it's pretty hilarious. So if something pops up that he wants, he has to try to get a hold of his girlfriend to ask her if he can have the money to get it. So it's pretty funny. John, I know you watched it and you had a lot of thoughts on the series. What would you like to share about that?
Well, the big one is like, one of the rules you forgot to mention is that the dead, the uploaded dead, are not allowed to work.
Right.
They're not allowed to. They can't make money because the way it was explained is that they threaten the economy of the living by possibly overwhelming it. But in that case, that means everyone is eventually going to be 2 gig, aren't they?
Yeah, because sooner or later, except for there's one gentleman in the show that is supposed to be like one of the Koch brother that died. And
But even eventually, won't he? Because I mean,
well, yeah, because you live forever. So
it takes a long time. But eventually, with no way to actually make income,
yeah,
you're just. I don't see this as a really viable strategy.
unless you have investments and a substantial seed of investment return that would offset your monthly expenditures.
But even in this case, this guy was working on a project to make his own afterlife community, and his partner, someone screwed him out of a lot. So, and he has no legal recourse because he's dead.
Right.
So it's like
that was the reason he was offed, was because he was building this virtual reality simulation that was a viable competitor for this beautiful afterlife world, but it was going to be free.
But what's to stop somebody from stealing all of that Koch brothers money?
Right.
Because there's no legal recourse. It's like they're at the mercy of the living, and I don't know. That doesn't seem like. I mean, maybe you're dying and you don't think about it, and it's like, hey, yeah, let's sign this piece of paper and we'll do this. But it's like the long term has got to be hitting these people at some point, that eventually they're all going to be 2-gigging it up.
Yeah, it's an interesting
they did provide them a way out, right? Wasn't the stream still there? They can suicide themselves.
Yeah, it is possible to suicide yourself, which would probably be the way I would go when I ran out of money. But
like 2-gig or death is what you're saying, Charles?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Katie, what were you saying?
I was saying it's an interesting premise and kind of sad because it feels very like real somehow. Like,
yeah. I mean, it's like capitalism taken to the ultimate extreme, where, you're dead and they've still found a way to get the last of whatever income you've got out of you before you can pass it on to somebody.
It's commodification in its rawest form. And it's like, yeah, you've taken a human, saved their essence, but stripped them of their humanity.
Yeah.
And all the rights that a human has. And it's like,
and
I don't know.
The weird thing about it, too, is that if you're in the simulation, you can place audio or video calls to people in the real world.
Aww.
So you can have your dead mother or dead father or cousin or whatever just decide to randomly call you on the phone. Now, of course, those calls use up your monthly allotment of money.
Well, you can also have sex in the afterlife with a very special suit, but
with somebody with somebody that's living. So if for example Josh were killed in a car crash and you put him in the upload simulation, right? And you two wanted to get together for a romantic evening, you could do that. Now Josh doesn't have to do anything special, but Katie would. So Katie,
Josh doesn't have to do anything special.
You have to go put on this special suit, and the suit is really weird. So on the outside, it looks like almost like I think like a rubber wetsuit, but on the inside, it has thousands of these little silicone fingers all over it.
Is Linda looking for the sex suit while we speak?
There's no images of that. Darn it.
So as Josh is touching you, those little silicone fingers will move so you can feel like he's actually there.
Huh.
And so the weird thing is that you can actually rent these suits to have sex in. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but personally, I would not want to rent a suit that somebody else had sex in.
No, that's a hard pass.
Yeah. And so this woman's out looking at these rental suits because she doesn't want to invest the money in getting one permanently, even though it's her boyfriend that she's uploaded into this simulation and she's got all this money.
So is this a movie or a series?
No, it's a series. So there's only one season out so far.
No.
The premise sounds... the premise sounds like a weird mix between the reality. Did you watch Altered Carbon?
No.
Yeah.
Or read the
Some of
book?
them did.
It sounds like a weird
I thought
premise.
you saw Altered Carbon, Bill.
No, we got started on it, but we only watched the first one, and Linda wasn't too hot on it.
I saw Altered Carbon, so I know.
The basic premise in Altered Carbon is that humans, they basically have backups, memory backups, right? Your personality, your memories, or everything are stored on physical media. So if something happens to your body, they could re-sleeve you into another body. Obviously, the more money you have, you can have a clone of yourself. But if you don't, then they may just stick you in a random skin suit, and that's what you look like now. This sounds like a mix between Altered Carbon and The Good Place.
I don't know if I've seen A Good Place.
Yeah, it's pretty close to The Place.
Yeah.
The style's not that different, I don't think.
What's it about?
Mine is cartoonish.
The Good Place was a TV series. I think it just wrapped up earlier this year, where a woman, Eleanor, dies and finds herself in the good place. They say, well, the afterlife isn't exactly what you thought it was. There is a good place and a bad place. Congratulations, you're in the good place. And they're talking about her life and all the things she did to end up there. And she realizes they've got the wrong Eleanor.
Oh.
So she doesn't actually belong there.
In the good place.
Someone else is in the bad place.
Yeah, so she mistakenly ended up there. And then the series kind of goes from there, with her trying to blend in and not be found out. Because if you thought like, oh, you know, I might end up in the bad place if I come out with this, well, then it's in your best interest to lie. So she's
sure.
This sounds a bit, like I said, a healthy balance between the two.
So do you ever see what the bad place is like?
Well, there's a million twists along the way. You just have to watch it. Yeah.
It's a really good series, and I don't want to spoil anything, because you can't talk about it for more than 30 seconds without spoiling a lot of it. But
I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, it's really good.
The Altered Carbon reference is actually pretty good, because basically, rather than having stacks, they have like hard drives that they carry their memories around when they're not in the simulation. And they actually did try to download one of the people back into a body that they cloned, and that did not go well. So
yeah, the body sort of self-destructed.
Yeah, so
that's scary.
It's like Altered Carbon in its very first stages, where they're starting to develop all this technology.
And one of the things that's hilarious is, so the guy whose girlfriend had him uploaded into the simulation, gets to the point where he's tired of living off of her and trying to rely on her for money and not getting it and all this kind of stuff. So, excuse me, he talks to his mother and says, I need you to take me out of here and find another simulation. I want to go to another simulation. And there are other ones out there, but they are really horrid. So anyway, she agrees to do it. So she goes and picks him up, and they basically put him on this little hard drive caddy kind of like thing. And so as they do that, and the place is giving it to him, they said, now for an additional $19.99, we can sell you one of these lovely caddies that will protect your loved ones, hard drive. And she decides not to do it. And they said, the guy that's there, he goes, yeah, it's just a gimmick. You don't need that. And
that reminded me of warranties. It's like, when you order something, you buy something and said you want to buy the 2-year warranty. I never do.
Yeah,
because it's designed to last 2 years.
There's the girlfriend. So her father's horribly wealthy, and then there's her boyfriend that's now in the upload world. Yeah. And
she treats him like crap because
she can.
She can
literally delete him at any time.
Yeah, and they're. Right there in this scene, that particular scene there, she's being interviewed by some, I don't know, I think it's a fashion magazine or something.
Vogue or something.
Yeah. And so, so he's just there. They don't let him get in a word in edgewise, which is kind of horrible. But anyway, so she takes him to this other simulation, and they upload him. And actually, it almost looks like Audie's background. So it's like this beach scene. But it's not immersive. So basically, when they put him in it, he just pops up, and it's just his head on this pillar, and it's like a head on a pillar in a 360-degree room with images displayed on the wall. So he can just turn his head around and look, and he can, if he leans his head forward, his simulation starts moving. It looks like the walls are moving, but he has no arms or legs. He can't walk around. He can't interact. So it's just horrible.
Sad.
Oh yeah. So his only option really is to go back, but
It's the Futurama head in the jars, right?
yeah, pretty much.
It's like, I think we got a good snapshot of what they don't have any rights at all.
No.
She can literally delete him at any time, and there's no ethical consequences to it. It's like
He's already dead.
Well, and that's a fascinating thing to debate. When is somebody dead? It's like, if you can preserve your personality, are you still alive?
My favorite part is the place that they can go to get like help. It's like the psychology room or the, I don't know, the psychiatrist room. There's his psychiatrist.
That's the dog. The dog's the psychiatrist, and he's got like this deep booming voice.
And he's like, "What are you gonna do?"
Yeah. So
I know there's been talk of. I think I read an article not too long ago about Russian billionaires trying to find a way to upload their brain into a computer.
No.
And I think we're so far off from that as a species that won't be achieved in our lifetimes. But the question becomes, if you can upload your brain, and I vaguely remember reading a short sci-fi story where they said, okay, well, we're going to connect your brain to this PC, and you're going to control this avatar in the other room, and then eventually they cut the link, and the PC version's controlling one avatar, but you're still alive in the other room. If they're it's the which of you is truly alive at that point. The uploaded version that's processing on the computer, or the version that's still in your meat husk. And
meat husk.
that's one of the things I always wondered about, which is, for example, if you do teleportation, and you're moving matter from one spot to another, if the piece of you that's in location A is physically destroyed, but it moves all the information to location B.
The Star Trek transporter paradox, in other words.
Right. Have you actually died at that point? Everything that was person A no longer exists, and person B has just created out of the ethos.
Right.
Person B isn't going to realize anything's wrong, but person A has now ceased to exist.
Right. And if person A had committed a murder and then transported somewhere, could person B go to prison for it?
In this show, they disintegrated him, though, to transport him.
Oh, yeah, into the simulation?
Yeah.
I think that was an accident, though, because they intended to kill him. So in the simulation, you get uploaded, and normally your body then just goes and is buried. But in this case, he was uploaded, and it vaporized his head.
Yeah, no, I think that's what's supposed to happen.
You do?
Yeah.
Because they did it again. It's like that's the upload process, is the disintegration of the head.
Oh, all right.
Yuck.
Which is graphic, most graphic actually.
Yeah.
But, I don't know how that all works, but
well, I mean, you're no longer using it, right?
Well, that's true. Well, are you though? I mean, because like you were saying, it's like if a copy is digitally created from my head, then I just gave the immortality to some guy I don't know, and I'm dead. So.
Well, either way, you're still dead.
Well, no, because in this case, the guy was not fatally injured. And
they think he could have lived.
They took him to the end of the hallway, and they could have taken him to the left into surgery, or to the right to go to the upload. And his girlfriend said, "Oh, you need to go upload. We can't take a chance. You need to go upload." And the nurses and doctors are saying, "No, he's not that badly injured. We can save him."
That's so sketchy.
Yeah,
I'll get better.
Yeah, the girlfriend kind of convinces him to go to the upload route.
Well, remember, she's crazy, right?
Right.
What did she do in the end? What happened at the very end when she showed up in the
in the simulation?
Yeah, because
she killed herself.
Yeah, she did.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I forgot that.
And uploaded herself into the same room.
Yeah. Because here's the weird thing. One of the things she convinces him to do, the reason she convinces him to go into the upload thing, is that she tells him they'll be together forever in this simulation. But he goes in as a young guy, and presumably she wouldn't go in until she lived a normal life, at which point she would be uploaded at that state. In fact, it's kind of funny because there's one woman that's uploaded there, and she's been one of the ladies that's been there the longest, but all they had were black and white photos of her. So she's a black and white avatar walking around in this color world. It's pretty hilarious. Cool. Yeah.
It could be fun.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. Be different.
But I mean, this guy is already starting to fall in love with this.
His controller. Whatever.
Well, they say it's an angel, but it's like it's a person who's in charge of adjusting the person to the afterlife. And he's falling in love.
It's kind of like their counselor, their adjustment counselor, or something
like that. Yeah.
They take care of uploading them and digitizing their body so that they look like, make sure that when they move their right hand, the right hand moves. And
but then Cray girlfriend shows up, so we'll see what happens in season 2.
Hey, but there's gonna be a season 2.
Yeah, nice. All right, well, shall we move on and talk about? Let's talk about Tales from the Loop, which is a different show that we've just finished watching. So there's also just one season out of that, if I remember rightly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that one is different. That's kind of like an anthology series, but it takes place in this single town. And there's a thing underground called the Loop, which is like a science experiment that is designed to explore the mysteries of the universe. And this town looks like it's locked in the 1980s, time-wise.
But it's not, because they have all kinds of interesting little technological advancements. Like they have hovercraft technology, they have like robots, they have. Well, yeah, it does seem like it's stuck in the 80s.
Yeah, interestingly enough, when the mom goes to one of the big cities nearby, that big city is just super futuristic. But yet the town they live in looks like it's in the 80s. The cars, the clothing. So it's almost like there's some sort of a time warp around the loop. But there's also all of this anachronistic debris scattered throughout the town. And old junked robots, machinery, looks like farm machinery, except the weird thing is it's just hovering in space, but it's like, junked. They early in the show, one of the episodes, these two kids come across this giant sphere, and it looks like it's just a piece of junk because it's kind of rusty and it's kind of tipped over, laying on its side. It's almost like some of this stuff is just materialized from other dimensions or something, and just wherever it shows up, that's where it is. So
tell them the basis of how this came about was from artwork, right?
Yeah. So, and Linda, why don't you show the artwork while I describe it? So there's I think he's a Swedish artist that has been drawing a lot of these images, and they're of just normal everyday life, but it will have some weird piece of technology inserted into the landscape that just kind of, throws it into another world. And so people have loved these images for a long time.
And they don't really explain them. They're just there. It's like you're seeing this. And that's kind of how it would be, because to the people, it's just stuff in their background. To us, we don't know what it is. So
Yeah.
I
And
like
so
that much.
basically what they did is they took these paintings and created a show,
Around
and
them.
each painting sort of serves as its own episode. And so the people that you'll see in the town, they interact with people from other stories. So a story may go on, you may meet somebody in that story that lives in the town, and then the next story will take on that new person's story or whatever and live it. And it's really good. So anyway, that there's that sphere, and these two kids come across it. So the one kid decides to climb in it because it's just a big empty metal ball.
It actually
And,
reminded me of an escape pod for
Yeah.
Toyo's rocket, because they were
Yeah.
round like that and small.
Right. But the weird thing is, it was just hollow on the inside. There was no technology in it or anything. But anyway, he goes in it, and as soon as he goes in it, there's like this escalating whine that kind of goes to a crescendo, and then all of a sudden, it flashes forward a couple of minutes, and the kid that's outside and the kid that are inside the pod, they're both kind of waking up. They've been knocked onto their backs or whatever, and they're both coming to, and they get up and they're looking around, and they're like just shocked, like what the hell happened, and they soon realize that whatever technology that was, their consciousness switched bodies. And so they're each in the other's body. And so, of course, they're totally freaked out about it. So the kid that originally went into the sphere, he decides to go back in to see if they can switch back. And so they do, and the same thing happens, and they switch back. So then they think, well, this is actually pretty cool. You know, it might be fun to live a day in each other's bodies and just, you know, have fun, see what it's like. So, so they go back in and they do it, and they switch again. And then they go off and live their lives. Well, the one kid who was outside the pod has a real shitty life. And the kid that's inside the pod has more well-to-do family, a better life. He's actually does very well in school, and he is slated to become a scientist working in the loop. Whereas the other kid is not. He doesn't do that well in school, and he's going to go work at a factory, I don't know, slaughtering cows or detasseling corn or some horrible job that he doesn't want to do. Well,
don't confuse those.
Right. No. Anyway, so throughout the day, this kid that's living the other kid's life decides, maybe I don't want to switch back. And so that's like kind of like the sphere, except the sphere it's actually the one on the far left looks a little bit more like it. They're not really painted like that. They're just kind of bare metal as I remember them. But anyway, it's that kind of kicks off the show. And each one of them is just almost more of a weird episode than the next one. And you're just trying to figure out, where's all this stuff come from and what does it all mean? And I don't know, Charles, you saw it. What'd you think of it?
Well, I haven't seen all of them. I saw. I'm more than halfway through. Oh, yeah. I thought it was tedious as all hell.
You did?
I gotta agree with Charles on that. It's not really. The acting is terrible.
Well, you know,
it's spotty. It's spotty. Some of the very few of the performances are excellent, but most of them are like
there's a lot acted before. There's a lot of shots of contemplation. And that got on my nerves.
It does get old after a while. It's a slow pace.
Yeah.
You can tell.
It's not high action. It's more, I think it's designed to be a more cerebral approach.
That way. It's supposed to
make
be
you think.
At least, but
thought-provoking, yeah.
But all the people didn't seem to actually, they didn't fit together. They didn't seem to actually be coherent. They did not seem, it's like they didn't know each other, even in cases where they should know each other. They did, their interactions were very primitive.
Yeah.
Is a way to put it.
Yeah, there's something about it that's just wrong, and I don't.
I did like it. I thought it was good.
It's a poor man's Black Mirror is pretty much what this is.
I thought it'd be good. Like, this is the kind of thing that'd be fun to watch. Like, it's so slow paced. Like playing a game of Scrabble or something. But to give it your full attention, to me, that was ugh.
Yeah, because it's like you start like wandering off.
Yeah.
Kind of, and then It's like you're starting to say, there's something I should be doing, and then you realize you're watching this and you should be watching it. It's just the pace. Charles is absolutely correct. It's like, I mean, it's good.
Not that it's not interesting.
And that's just it right there. It should be fascinating, but you find your mind wandering because of how it's done.
Clothes or something.
Maybe if they do a season 2, they'll bring it around, bring it back.
How long are the episodes?
About an hour and some change.
Less than an hour. What'd you say, John?
About an hour and some change.
Yeah. Yeah, right around an hour, I think.
If they reduce the episodes to a half an hour or 40 minutes, do you think that improved the pacing a bit?
Yeah.
It would. All right.
Speed it up.
it would probably, stop. It would increase retention. It's like, because it's like, it's after about 20 minutes, half an hour that you start, hey, maybe I should feed my cats or something. It's like, rather than actually watch, you start thinking of other things you might have to do because
that's a slow pace.
That's an interesting point, John. So one of the things I think is odd behavior for me personally is I find it's easier to invest in binge watching a TV show than committing to a movie. Even though I'm probably going to end up watching 2 to 3 hours of that TV show, it feels like less of a commitment than the movie does because I know in my head, I'm like, well, these episodes are going to be 22 to 24 minutes, if they were old commercial format. And then at the end of an episode, I can stop, do something, come back. And it just feels like less of a commitment. Katie and I just got done watching a Kdrama series called Romance is a Bonus Book on Netflix. And the episodes were about an hour apiece. And there was only 16 episodes. And so a little longer than an average television season. But I'm almost thinking it took us weeks to get through that series, whereas if it was just a standard TV show, I'm sure we would have gotten through it much faster.
Yeah.
Because it's just so hard to say I'm going to sit down and commit to an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of...
I'll tell you what it is for me is I prefer binge watching the series. If I have a choice and we're going to sit down and watch something, I'd rather start a new series that's 1, 2, or maybe many more seasons than a movie. Because in my mind, if I'm going to sit down and invest 2 hours, say, of my time in a story and with characters, in my mind, it's something that I want to be able to continue for a while.
Yeah, I dig.
I want the long haul story with these characters, and I want to know everything there is to know about them versus just a 2-hour movie and then move on to something else.
And that's what disappointed me about Tales from the Loop, because, all right, Stranger Things.
Yeah.
When Stranger Things came out, I ignored it. I don't know why. I can't tell you why. But when season 2 came out of Stranger Things, I said, all right, I'll watch season 1 Stranger Things. And I did it in a day.
Yeah,
which
because you couldn't let go.
Yeah, I couldn't stop. And then the next steps. Then I did season 2 the next day. So in 48 hours, I watched both seasons because it gripped me. And Tales from the Loop failed to do that. It was literally. It's like, but I could only handle about 2 episodes a day.
Yeah.
Because after that, I was struggling with those 2. There's just something about it that it fights me. It makes me fight. My attention span keeps wanting to run away.
See, and I loved it. I really liked watching it. And
I find it to be very, very good speculative fiction. It's actually well written. I think the actors are doing the best they can because they have some really good name actors, but I don't think people are telling them what to do correctly.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know, but it's like
we did like the stories because we wanted
to love it. I wanted to love it really bad, but it was almost painful at times.
Yeah.
Don, it sounds like, so I have tried numerous times over my life to read Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, and I get usually about 100 to 150 pages into that book and go, I just don't care.
I get about 75 pages in, and I wonder why every Russian doesn't just fucking kill themselves.
Well, it's you've heard the old joke about how do you sum up Russian history in 5 words? And then it gets worse.
Yes.
But
did I just golf clap tragedy? I think I did.
But it's one of those things to where I can look at the book and go, I know this is well written. I know the subject's supposed to be engaging. It's just not gripping me. It's not keeping my interest. And it sounds like this series is kind of the same way, where it's like, hey, I know this is made well. I know the subject matter is supposed to be really interesting. I just don't care.
Right.
It watches like a Russian novel reads. It does.
It does.
Yeah.
That's perfect, Charles. That's exactly it.
Did you watch it at all, Audie?
The Loop? No.
Yeah. Oh.
So you're not going to be able to wait to go out there and grab it now.
All right.
Well, you give it a try. I mean, but it's like, I've got 2.5 episodes left to go. I'm just gonna do it because I feel that
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like I made it this far. You know, it's like kind of yeah.
Well, sometimes you do, because that's funny. Because Crime and Punishment.
It should come with a free T-shirt that I made it all the way through this thing. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I was reading Crime and Punishment in high school when I got the chicken pox.
Oh.
And
probably the better alternative to reading the book.
It's like I have about 2 chapters left, right? I'm right at the end. But I went delirious.
Charles, you're supposed to read the book, not live the story.
I know. It actually gave me a phobia for Russian literature, but I will not read a Russian literature book without interspersing it with something funny.
I think it depends on the author a lot. Yeah. I've read like Tolstoy, I've read, and I'm like, well, this is interesting. Like there's something about I had a friend who described to me once, he's like, you know, the difference, he was talking about Victor Hugo, and even though Les Miserables is one of the longest goddamn novels you can ever read, he said the difference between like him and Dostoevsky is that Victor Hugo will time skip and Dostoevsky will write the whole 20 years out, and you just won't care about any of it because it's going to be the most mundane, boring crap.
Hugo's my favorite writer.
I have a question because, you know, Bill, you were talking about you preferred to binge entire series.
Yeah.
And John had mentioned Stranger Things, binging season 1, season 2. And I actually found that by the end of season 2, there was an episode in particular, and I guess spoilers for anybody that's not caught up, but there was an episode in particular that I'm sure everyone kind of agrees was poorly written.
Stranger Things, right?
Yep. Revolving around her sister. And by the time we got to the end of that season, it had just kind of been like, well, I think the show was really good at a single note, but they kind of hammered that note home, and we haven't even picked up season 3 yet because we for whatever reason, it just kind of dropped our interest. And I don't know if that's just something where Katie and I are kind of like, well, you know, this was a particular flavor of thing. It did a good job of presenting that. But
when you say her sister, you're talking about one of the others in the experiment?
11's sister.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just going to say that they don't go too much more into that.
That episode felt like filler. It was weird.
It was filler. Right. You're absolutely right. That one, and they never really go back to that.
Probably like, because everybody hated it.
I recommend season 3. It's really good. It is.
Well,
yeah.
I think the problem I had.
That filler. Give them one bad episode. Just give them that one.
Season 2 just felt like season 1 all over again, but slightly different. It felt like.
Well, season 3 will not be like season 2 and 1. I promise you.
Okay. Well, we'll give it a shot because
Yeah, honestly, I don't remember anything of what happened in season 2. I guess I have to rewatch it. I don't know.
I know the episode you're talking about, and it didn't seem organic to the actual flow of all the rest of it. So I didn't. I'm glad that they went away from that because I liked where they were going with all of that stuff, and it's like they just never really came back. They might in season 4. I don't know, but
I think one of the biggest problems I had is to me, I liken a lot of things back to Dragon Ball Z, which is they had so many seasons, but each season was basically the same thing, which is Monster of the Week shows up or Bad Guy of the Week shows up. They're way more powerful. Goku dies. They use the Dragon Balls to bring it back. Goku wins. Repeat for, ad infinitum.
And at least half the time is spent screaming.
Right. And season 2 to me felt like we were watching season 2 and I'm like, well, we kind of saw all this already with season 1, only now it's got, the guy from Goonies and Lord of the Rings in it. And it wasn't, and I kind of have the same problem that Katie does, which is I don't remember much of it because it didn't leave much of an impact.
Right.
Yeah.
They have a couple new characters in season 3 and a lot of Russians. So
hey.
Yeah.
So it gets worse.
It gets it. You think it's on the verge of turning into the Goonies, but it doesn't quite. It actually stays. It's true to Stranger Things, but yeah, I can see by saying that those words coming out of my mouth. There's new characters in Russians, and it's like I just sounded campy. I did, but it's not really campy, but it's sure.
The Russians are kind of campy.
When I talk about it, when I'm describing it now, it's like I'm just describing something I don't want to see. But it's good. It is. I promise. I swear.
All right. Well, we'll give it a shot.
There was something I wanted to come back to that John said earlier that was really fascinating about Tales from the Loop when he said that it feels like the actors don't know each other.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a phenomenon that happens when actors aren't like in the same world in a way, and like it just feels like they're all kind of in separate. Like this is something with voice acting that we have to be really careful of because when people are literally recording separately and never interact with each other, like you can feel like this person is like in a cartoon and this person is like in this thing. And so like keeping true to the world and the style, like you would perform very differently in Game of Thrones than you would in, Stranger Things or something.
Do actors actually, do they ever sit down with their like directors and producers and discuss what they're doing?
Are you talking about voice acting or regular acting?
Voice acting and acting, I imagine, because these are actors, not voice actors. And it's like they all seem to, they're just not on the same page. I mean, I think there's some really good actors, like I said, and some people I have never seen, but they seem to be fine actors. They just don't seem to interact like they've ever interacted before. It's almost they met each other right then and there.
It's a tough question because it depends on the director and what they think is important. Sometimes they will just throw people onto set and they're like, oh, hi, I've never met any of you before. Like, I don't know. But sometimes they will really take the time to help people understand what they're trying to tell, what kind of story, but not always.
Do you prefer to act in things where you actually have some kind of grasp about how you're supposed to feel and how others are supposed to feel, and in the same room where you all connect to? Like, do you like do table reads?
Well, see, that's what's brilliant about theater because and you do like a month of that, basically. That's what rehearsal is. But with film, usually, sometimes you'll get like one table read, but time is money, right? And sometimes they're just like, all right, here's the script. I'll meet you on our filming day,
Oh my
so
God.
it just really depends, but that's the cool thing about theater.
Well, what about voice acting? So
yeah.
How do you guys get together on the same page for what you're doing? I mean, do you meet one-on-one with the person that's hiring you to do the reads and they kind of tell you what they're looking for, or do you all get together and agree on a style?
I'd say like 95% of the time, the director is just like, all right, here's the script, do what you did for the audition, whatever that voice was. Send me like a few different takes and I'll just choose whatever one is best. and then you hope that it all sounds good in the end, but you don't really know until it comes out. That's like most of the time. But sometimes directors will be like, all right, we're going to have a live recording session. I'm going to guide you through it. I'm going to make sure it sounds good with everyone else. Like,
that's
it
good.
Depends.
One of the things I've seen on a couple of the projects that Katie has worked on too is oftentimes the voice actors have different equipment.
Oh, yeah.
And so what you'll hear is like Katie's audio comes through, it's very rich, it's very clear. And then the next person will come on and they're acting well, but sounds like they're recording their lines through a 1980s walkie-talkie.
And immediately take you out of the world, right?
Yeah.
Right. Because there's like this over the top, and you're like, well, now I'm no longer absorbed, because what I like about the work Katie does is you're thinking more about what the character's doing, what the character's talking about, thinking, feeling, saying, etc. But when that audio comes through, you're just really aware that you're listening to recorded audio all of a sudden, as opposed to I'm immersed in this universe. So there's probably extra difficulty with that, I would think as a director, trying to just make sure that everybody kind of sounds like they recorded together, even if they didn't.
Yeah, so there's like the physical recording world, and then the like more like, are we in the same world acting together sort of thing.
Now, when you're doing voice acting, and so so you've got this script in front of you, I take it, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're just reading your lines, but I'm assuming you've got the other characters' lines in there as well, so that you know what they're saying to you, so that you can respond to them. But I think that maybe not.
Like 50-50.
Really?
Oh my
God. So sometimes is it just
just
only your lines?
Yeah, it'll just be a massive amount of like, oh wow, or like that's interesting or whatever, and I have no idea what the person said.
That would be
that's part of my job, is to really use my imagination and picture whatever is happening and take my best shot at it. And sometimes they'll write back and be like,
so fun listening to her record sometimes, because she doesn't realize that we can hear her sometimes, but she'll be saying some of the weirdest things, but you only hear her half of the conversation.
Sure.
And so there's no context whatsoever. There's no explanation, and it's like half the time it's her just yelling.
Huh.
That's almost dramatic, man.
If I've learned anything about voice actors, is apparently they yell all the time. It's a lot of her, like, making battle sounds and
wow.
It's very
So when you're recording this stuff, Katie, then so you record it digitally, I'm sure, right? Then do you go back with software and tweak that recording?
Yes.
So what are you doing when you're going back to do that?
I'm sorry to go on a tangent. This is exciting.
That's okay. This is fascinating to me.
Yeah. So I record it just with a little bit of space between each line, so I have that. And then I go back, and I'd say for every like minute of recording, I probably spend like 3 minutes editing. So that's something I'm aware of too when I look at like how much something is paying me, because I'm like, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because I not only want to take out all that background sound, like Josh said, which no matter, I feel like, how good of a studio you have, there's going to be room tone, because every room just has its own sound,
Sure.
So I go back and get rid of that, and then I just kind of condense things. Like, I don't want there to be 30 seconds between a line where I'm looking for something, because the person listening later doesn't want that. So I make sure to just put everything a little closely together and get rid of like every voice has their own little like quirks. Like, I sometimes pronounce my S's too strong, and I have to go get rid of that. Or some people like have a lot of mouth clicks and that kind of thing. So when you hear those weird things, you just want to get rid of them.
So what kind of? Go ahead.
Sorry, because I do theater, I use a lot of breath, and so I take really deep breaths when I'm recording, and it sounds really unnatural, because I might just be having a casual conversation, and I'm like,
gotta breathe.
Now, what software are you using to edit your stuff then?
Oh, I just use the super free, really easy Audacity.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've used that before. That's pretty good software.
Yeah.
For
It's
amazingly good for it being free, I think.
Yeah.
So, huh.
Funny note, yeah, I used to use it when I was a ghost hunter,
Mm.
using high and low passes to get some of those clicks out so you can like hear better.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You can clear whole frequencies that'll clean up a track really well. So
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Audacity is amazing for free. It really, really is.
Yeah. They should sponsor us.
Katie is not one to toot her own horn, but the part she's leaving out is everything that she's learned, all the software editing, how to record. These are all things she's taught herself over the last 3 or 4 years. And so
wow,
it's been amazing to watch for her to go into it with zero knowledge, zero experience. No one really sat her down and said, this is how you have to do this, to where I'll come home, she's got her headphones on, she's sitting editing editing her audio files, and she's like, well, I've got to get this recording out today because this person, wanted me to make these changes, and I've got 3 more auditions I gotta submit. And
wow.
And it's really interesting to me because I'll hear her, she'll record the same line 4 different ways so she can go back later and say, this is the take I want, clip all the rest out. And here's what I can tell you, as a software, I was about to throw my whole title in there, but realized it doesn't matter. As a software developer, I've tried to go in and use Audacity, and it's a foreign language to me. So the fact that she's gotten as professional with it and competent with it as she has is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, nice. Well, and considering the fact that we're in a global pandemic and it's hard to get together and do live acting now, this is a real way for you to stay in the game and continue doing what you love doing, without putting yourself at risk being out with other people. So that was kind of fortunate that you started that when you did.
I'm so grateful.
Yep. So are you working on any projects right now that you want to talk about, or?
A couple, a lot of the work I do is for businesses or English language learning apps and that kind of thing. Okay. So they're kind of more catered towards a specific audience, but there is a couple little visual novels that I'm working on, which, if you don't know what that is, it's sort of it's like a mix between a video game and reading a book, sort of. So you have a visual component. It's usually some kind of still image, and then you're reading their dialogue. And in most games, that dialogue is also voice acted, but and the only sort of play element is sometimes you make decisions that have branching paths and stuff. So
it's kind of like a choose your own adventure / dating sim a lot.
Usually there's a dating element to it,
Nice.
So
cool.
So I'm in a couple of those right now, and I'm excited.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, let's move on. So another thing that a number of people have recommended we watch, and Josh and Katie finally helped to make sure that we did, was What We Do in the Shadows. Yay. Which, Josh, why don't you go ahead and explain that for us, because you're a huge fan.
What We Do in the Shadows is a mockumentary. And we started with the movie. You haven't seen the series yet.
Right.
So we started with the movie, and I can never pronounce this director's name right. I actually have to have it in front of me.
Those are the characters from the movie that Linda put on screen there.
They're so cute, aren't they?
Oh, I don't want the TV series. I wanted the movie. Well, regardless, the director, he's the same guy that did Thor Ragnarok and recently Jojo Rabbit. And
I don't know how to say that name either.
Taiki something.
Yeah. Something.
But I made the really poor decision of watching that movie for the first time on a flight from LA back to Omaha. I had a friend just tell me, well, he's like, you're really gonna like this film. You need to watch it. And I said, I've got 4 hours to kill. I'm stuck on the plane here, so I load it on my my Kindle Fire, and I started watching it. And I spent the entire flight going, I can't laugh as loud as I want to. Like, people are going to be because I'm very loud when I'm laughing, and it is one of the funniest films I've ever seen. It's in probably my top 10 or 15 comedy films because it's so absurd, and the way they filmed it, it's very there's something about that their style of humor where they don't treat it as anything fantastic. It's this movie about vampires and their day-to-day lives, and you would think that they'd be trying to make this fantastical thing, and really it's just them going about their business, and it's incredible.
So it's a story. So you've got these 4 vampires that share a flat together in a Wellington suburb in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all different ages. So as you look at the picture Linda put up, the guy that's on the bottom center there, with the bald head and the pointy ears, he's like 8,000 years old.
Yeah.
And he's
8,000 years old. Yeah.
And he's very feral in his responses. So, and then the other guys are various ages, 183 years, I think, and
300 and something.
Yeah. And they all have their weird quirks. And then the guy on the far right is just a normal human.
Stu. And Stu's like their pet. It's like they
kind of, yeah.
They think Stu's the neatest thing. It's like,
well, and he teaches them how to use technology.
Yeah.
Because he teaches the one guy who hasn't seen his manservant whom he left in Europe somewhere 1,000 years ago, or I don't know how long ago it was.
Probably like 70, 80 years ago.
Yeah, because the guy's still living and he's human. So he gets him together on a Zoom conference call with him so that they can catch up, and it's just hilarious.
You can really tell from this picture like their different personalities too, which is great.
Yeah.
Stu's just really laid back. He's like, he knows he's surrounded by vampires and werewolves. He just doesn't care.
He's like, what if? Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy that's standing next to Stu, the second one over from the right, he's a very recent vampire. He's only
he's a recent addition.
Yeah, a few days to a week old, and he's stupidly going around telling everyone he's a vampire.
He's a vampire.
And the one scene with him that I thought was the most hilarious is they're like at a convenience store picking up some food, and he's talking to the convenience store clerk, and he tells him he's a vampire, and the convenience store clerk is like, yeah, I'm a vampire too, like
whatever.
Maybe a cosplay or, a vampire wannabe or whatever, and he's just kind of joking around with him like, yeah, I'm a vampire too, and he says, show me some of your supernatural powers or something like that. And the guy just his face turns ghastly like a demon, and the guy is just standing there like, what the F just happened?
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of like Best in Show or A Mighty Wind or Spinal Tap, where again, these other mockumentaries where the humor is very, the people themselves are just absurd. And what I think made it, even though everybody's vampire and supernatural, what made the characters interesting is that they gave it a sense of realism. So I cannot remember the character's name, but yes, his character was an he was a 18th century fop, and so they kept those personality traits to where he was very particular, wanted
very
things
fastidious.
Cleaned up, but living in 2014 where that just doesn't work, and it was very surreal to watch.
Well, and the hilarious part is he wants all the vampires to be neater. And, when you kill somebody, can't you lay down some newspapers or towels so you don't get the blood all over everything? And then he tries to
set up a chores chart. And
Yeah.
it's like, you haven't done the dishes for 5 years. This is still here. 5 years later, and it shows a whole bunch of dishes. And the other vampires are like, we're vampires. We don't do dishes. And it's like, he wants the dishes done.
What I think is interesting about this in the TV series is I've yet to meet someone that we've introduced it to who has walked away from it going, yeah, I don't like that. I think everybody's kind of like, no, this is really good. The TV series, when you start to watch it, I think the first episode, maybe the first like 2 episodes, parallels the movie a little bit because they needed a jumping off point. But they quickly diverge enough to where the characters in the TV show become their own thing. And I can tell you after watching 2 seasons of the TV show, I think I like it better than the movie.
Well, I liked it, and I'll probably watch. I'm a little unhappy. It's like that I had to actually buy the movie from Amazon Prime. It's not a big price. It's just like but I pay for Amazon Prime, so
I know, I don't get that whole.
It chaves me a little bit, and I'll have to pay for the series too. But it's very good. It really is.
The series is available to stream for free on Hulu right now.
I could not find it there.
On Hulu?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
no,
it's out there.
I found it, but actually, it's not. It doesn't seem to be free. Are you sure?
On Hulu, it is. At least I think it is.
Right now, find that.
My viewpoint, particularly when I see stuff like this on Amazon, and they're still like, "Hey, it's $5 or $10 to watch or to own it." It's the streaming rights and licensing for most of this stuff is so complicated.
Yeah.
That like Doctor Who, I paid for a lot of the series on Amazon so I could watch it the day after they aired, and Amazon has removed all the old seasons because they don't have the licensing anymore. All that's moved to HBO Max.
Yeah.
I'm probably eventually going to buckle and pay for HBO Max just because between Doctor Who, Miyazaki, etc., there's going to be a lot of things I want to watch there. But if it's a one-off movie where I know I'm going to pay for it, I'll be able to watch it whenever I want. I'm like, look, $10 for me, how much would this have cost if Katie and I went to see it in the movie theater? Probably close to $30-$40 once you factor in tickets, popcorn, drinks, etc. For $10, I can pay for the movie, support the people that went through the trouble of producing it, acting in it, to ensure those people keep making things I enjoy, and I now have it. I can watch it whenever I want. So
that makes sense.
And it was way cheaper than going to the movie theater anyway, which I was actually kind of happy to see a number of theaters say we're just going to throw our movies out for streaming instead of putting them in the theater during the quarantine that's going on. Because anymore, there are some things I want to see in a movie theater, but a lot of things where I'm like, well, if it was just $5 and I could watch it on my couch, I'd be more inclined to do it than spending $40 to go see it in a movie theater.
I do miss that experience, though. Something about being with other people. And
I know,
right.
Yeah, Josh is right. It's on Hulu for free, and it's like, I know what I'm doing today, but
it's a good choice.
It's not a big price. It's just it's the
it was like $4, I think.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but it's the principle. It's like, and now if a movie, like taking a movie and putting it directly to streaming, they want to charge for that. I understand it didn't have a theater run, but it's like.
Here's the way I look at it. So that movie is not something that Amazon owns or owns the rights to. Right. So would you rather have them have it out there and have you have access to it for a small fee, or have them not even have it in their inventory at all? And in my mind, I'd rather have them have it out there for a small fee and give me the option of watching it and paying a small fee to see it versus not being able to get it at all.
Even get it.
But
Right?
I'm looking at it like I'm a teacher. I teach, but the students pay UNO for me to teach. What if I charge for my office hours? That's kind of how
I remember, John, that
for the class. It's like, are the office hours included or are they not?
Amazon Prime isn't just a video streaming service. You're paying for the 2-day shipping. You're paying for the video streaming. You're paying for access to their music service and catalog. And so
are you trying to justify me paying more to Amazon, who has more money than God?
But you're not paying more to Amazon. That money that you're paying oftentimes goes directly to the company, the producer. They're just providing a platform for you to watch it. It's so there's services like View, etc., where a lot of you can purchase digital versions of the movie. So if you go to Walmart, they'll have the little cards where it's like, well, you could just buy the digital version and it's $5 or $10 versus $20 for the Blu-ray. I can purchase that, go on to an app on Amazon Prime and watch it. Amazon Prime is providing me that application, right? But that's still them just providing the ability to view that material. It's the same thing as when you purchase a movie through them. You're not, I would say if the movie costs $10, I'd almost guarantee that 98% of that goes towards the production company, goes towards the movie studio, goes towards whoever holds the licensing rights, versus Amazon, who's just providing you the service to stream it.
Everything you say is true. I'm positive that's true. Yet that still doesn't make it chafe list. It's just a principle, especially with Amazon, who just is the conglomerate that controls the world. And it's like,
well, you don't have to use Amazon Prime to stream it. You could use Apple TV. You could use YouTube. I'm almost willing to bet YouTube has What We Do in Shadows for a similar price, and you could stream it through there.
But I get both sides. I get what you're saying for sure.
I would have done it. And I agree with it's. If it was mom and pop, it was like upcoming ups. If I felt like my community was benefiting, it would make me
right now
than throwing money at Jeff Bezos.
Right now on YouTube, What We Do in the Shadows is $10.99 to purchase on HD and $3.99 to rent in HD, which is the same price it was on Amazon.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's.
I would have felt better about that somehow. I would have felt better about that.
What were you going to say, Charles? I think you had a point you were trying to make.
Because there's a lot of these. Because this is maybe not older, but it's a few years old, right?
Yeah, it came out in 2014.
And so to me, some of these older films,
older, it was like 5 years ago.
Well,
that's older.
But it's stocking. I mean, they've got a stock. It's not a popular film to watch right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Like the other day, I watched. I'm trying to think if I paid for it or not, but I was curious. So I watched like Omega Men with Charlton Heston.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Good one.
I'd watched it as a kid, but if I have to pay $2 or $3 or whatever to satisfy some curiosity, then it was worth it.
Yeah.
That's okay, but I'm already paying Amazon, and Amazon already has all the money.
They own the world already, yeah. But
yeah.
I liken it to its pay-per-view on cable.
Yeah.
Right? You're already paying for your cable service, but with pay-per-view, there are some things you had to pay extra to see, right? And that's because it was there were special things, there were licensed events, Yeah. If you used to be in wrestling, watching WrestleMania, that was a pay-per-view event, or boxing, because these are things that are outside of the purview of the licensee of normal cable television.
Are you getting a kickback from Amazon?
No,
Josh is on their payroll.
I'm just a realist, and honestly, 99% of the time, I prefer to purchase physical media over digital, because I know digital rights. Most of the time, you don't really own it. You're leasing it from them for an indeterminate period of time until their licensing changed. I think it was actually Amazon a handful of years ago where they had to recall digital editions of 1984 because they didn't have the licensing for it. And so they removed it from people's Kindle libraries. People that had legitimately purchased the book no longer had access to it because Amazon didn't have the licensing for it. So if it's something I truly enjoy, like I have a big box set of MASH on DVD because it bounces between streaming services all the time. Sometimes it's on Netflix, sometimes it's on Hulu. And I said, well, I don't want to be beholden to a service provider to watch this content that I enjoy. So I have a physical media of it.
Might I say that your Hawkeye cosplay is also spot on and give you a golf clap for that?
Thanks. But I'm also aware of we are in a tenuous relationship right now with a lot of these content providers. Amazon is probably it's around $100 a year. And I think Netflix, Hulu, if you average them out, are around the same. Yeah. That's still tremendously cheaper than if I was paying for cable still. Right. But if I start, the more people that are willing to say, hey, look, this is a movie I want to watch. It's $5 to purchase, or it's $2 to rent. It's going to keep the studios incentivized to keep providing that versus, hey, I'm just going to pirate these movies. Well, then we're going to have the same problem we did with cable, which is everybody's going to start increasing their costs because they're not getting the revenues that they expected. I'd rather I pay for things I enjoy and incentivize the providers, whether that's Viacom or Sony or Miramax or whomever, to continue keeping prices low enough to where it's approachable versus, we're just, I mean, look at Disney now has their own streaming service. HBO is coming out with their own streaming service. NBC put Star Trek behind a fucking paywall, which is, I still haven't watched any of Discovery, and I refuse to because that's one of those where I thought,
it goes against Roddenberry's vision, I think.
Well, but that's the thing. I could have said I'm not going to pay for this. I'm going to try and pirate it and stream it, but I'd rather just vote with my wallet.
Would do that.
Well, I'm just going to vote with my wallet and say, I don't agree with the decision you made to put this behind a paywall. I'm not going to watch it. I'll watch The Orville, which is included on some of my streaming services. And honestly, in my opinion, probably a better program.
My only issue with that was that
there's some Josh Cato cosplay right there.
Yes, nice. My only issue with CBS and their charging for Discovery or for some of the Star Trek stuff that they're showing was that they're only doing it for people in the United States. If you're elsewhere in the world, you get it free on Netflix. And that's what irritated the shit out of me was why are they screwing U.S. customers?
That's what prescription drug companies do is most places regulate. So the drugs that cost like $300 a prescription here cost like $7.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
So the United States, because the United States has a lot of the money. So
but our healthcare system's all messed up.
Well, it's the same principle as what CBS is doing with Discovery. Bill's right. If you live in England, you can watch it on Netflix. It's like if you live in Canada, you can watch it on Netflix, but you can't watch it here without getting CBS All Access, which I don't know how you get around that without looking bad, because it looks bad to me.
Right. Although now they've soured their relationship with Netflix, so I don't think you can even get it on Netflix now internationally, but I don't know.
Well,
I haven't looked at it in a while, but
I've got sour grapes over the direction they've taken with Discovery and Star Trek in recent years anyway, so I'm probably not the right person to ask about that.
I'd actually be very curious to hear what you think. What about the direct? Because I have some thoughts on that. I'd like to hear what you have to say.
I don't think it's Star Trek. I haven't seen Picard, so I can't speak to it, but everything I've read about the synopses for Discovery, and I said, looking at the original Star Trek series, looking at Next Generation, even looking at Deep Space Nine and Voyager, there's always been this message of hope and showing that negotiation and politics and diplomacy are how you solve problems. And it was always about exploration and curiosity about the world around you. And what Discovery is, this is sci-fi action porn.
Yeah, they're trying to turn it from a science fiction series into a space opera. I mean, it's just.
And
Josh, your mic went kind of wonky for a second.
Yeah,
kind of chopping out a little bit.
Got some warbly.
Is it better now?
No.
I could probably fix it. Hang on.
But no, I agree with exactly what you're saying. It's not really Star Trek. It's not bad, but it's not Star Trek. It's in many cases. Picard is actually mostly fan service too. Really, basically, whole bunches of scenes for the older fans who have grown, who love the Next Generation. New actors coming in from the old show, and
part of the reason. Is my mic working better now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Part of the reason I liked Orville is I wasn't sold on it on the first couple episodes. It was this is Family Guy in space. And
I think that's how he sold it to Fox.
Yeah, and I stuck with it, and quickly there's still the occasional bit of humor in there, but they captured this spirit of, and a lot of people compare it to Next Generation, where it's got that sense of hope to it, and a lot of the people complain, well, the stories are dealing with potentially racism and gender politics, and I said, but
so did they. Star Trek did that.
And that's why I said Gene Roddenberry was constantly pushing the envelope about social norms. And yes, the original series is crazy misogynistic, right? But for what it was, they were still trying to push the boundaries. And that's one of the things I like about the Orville is Seth MacFarlane and crew are saying, like, look, these are the things we know to be true, and that whether or not society is ready to accept them, we're going to illustrate both sides of the argument. And they do it in a way, particularly there's an episode where the Mocklins, Clyden and Bortus, are dealing with the gender identity of their child. Right. And they portray both sides of that argument in a very respectful way, so that you can look and you can understand why Clyden, who tends to be more conservative in his views, feels the way he does. And you don't necessarily look at that and go like, oh my God, what a monster. You go, well, I see where he's coming from, and you're still allowed to disagree with it, but they do it in a way that they're trying to illustrate and I use this term loosely, the humanity of everybody in the situation.
So what do you think about Clyden and Bortus? Are they going to make it as a couple? I don't see that.
I mean, they did try to get divorced once.
By killing each other. That's the Mocklin divorce, is you stab.
I was really, if the war with the massive spoilers for anybody that's not caught up. So if you're still catching up on the Orville, like, tune out for the next 2 minutes. The fact that they introduced the Kalons as the everybody come together, this is the big baddie. I think if they hadn't gone down that road, the war with the Mocklins was coming. Yeah,
I agree.
And there's a lot of parallels, obviously, between them and the Klingons, I think, in Star Trek. But the conservative nature of and the tenuous relationship between the Mocklins and the what's the name of their collective? It's not the Federation, whatever the Orville collective is.
The Union.
The Union, yeah. Their tenuous relationship with the Union, I think, was very fragile, and particularly some of the decisions they made with the planet full of refugees, they were marching very rapidly to war. And so it'll be interesting with season 3 to see if that's still bubbling beneath the surface, even though there's the war with the Kalons and the very new partnership between the Krill and the Union. So
yeah, it shows a political universe. You're right. It's like, I love it. It's the original Star Trek. It's like, with blackjack and hookers, just like
versus Discovery, which is basically like, here's, it's 24 in space. Here's all this stuff with Black Ops, and it just wasn't for me. I said, that's not what I want out of Star Trek.
Yeah.
I do give credit to, from what I've read about Picard, they're trying to at least have some more philosophical discussions about the nature of what existence is and right to life is, and
you saw that a lot in this first season of Picard. It was really, for me, a lot more like the traditional Star Trek that we've come to know and love. And so I thought that was good. It was a lot while there was action in it, it was a lot more of a measured pace, and it wasn't the over the top
frantic,
and it was a more thoughtful presentation, and sort of opened up discussion on what it means to be a sentient life. And
we also have to remember that the original Star Trek, Josh is right, misogynistic almost doesn't cover how misogynistic it was, but it's like they dealt with, there was a black woman in a command position, there was an Asian in a command position, there was a Russian in the middle of the heated up Cold War in a command position, and Gene Roddenberry took a lot of flack for all of that. It's like right now the idea of having a black woman at front and center on a show is something we don't think about. It wasn't done. It just was not done in these days. And that's Star Trek going out and just basically, confronting culture with its own issues. Now, I feel the Orville's doing that, and
well, now on
Discovery is not.
On Discovery, though, you did have a gay couple. So, I mean, that's...
Who is it?
It's the chief medical officer and Stamets.
Yes, yes, it was. But okay, so they had a gay couple.
But I have to wonder if a lot of the reason that Discovery was so different from the traditional Trek that we know is because of the licensing agreements and disputes between Paramount and CBS when they were broken up by Sumner Redstone. And
I blame Kurtzman, and I blame Bad Robot.
Yeah. So part of the arrangement there was that in order for Bad Robot to market, and a lot of the money that they get from these shows is in this marketing of merchandise afterwards. But in order for them to be able to retain the profit from any of the marketing from merchandise, that merchandise had to be at least 25% different from the original series, both in content and style and all that kind of stuff. So you have to wonder how much of that, was forced. And now that CBS and Paramount are now once again one company, it'll be interesting to see how season 3 of Discovery changes in tone and intent, and if they start bringing that back together.
Well, we could talk about season 3, but I don't think we could do it without major spoilers.
Yeah, well, season 3 we could talk about because we don't really know.
I'm going to bring us back to, there he is.
Nice.
Thanks, Josh. I just got your picture.
That is a great cosplay, dude.
There's a Hawkeye for you.
Awesome.
I like it better when you're in the robe because it's like, it's perfect.
But no, I can
awesome.
attest that he studied like the smile to get it just right. Like it's so cute.
It's perfect.
Spot on. It's awesome.
Is perfect. Yay!
The sad truth of it is, with the newer movies, with Discovery, it's if there wasn't a market, they wouldn't be making it.
True.
And
that's true, yeah. And that's why I kind of like Discovery, because it's not like the original Star Trek.
Well, yeah,
just because it has the Star Trek name in it doesn't
it's pew pew millennial stuff. They're trying to market to people who.
I'm not a millennial, and I liked it.
Oddly, I think I'm right at the top cusp of millennial. I think they said 82 was the first year that wow, I just aged myself a little bit. But
honey, that's the year we got married.
I'm the first year. I'm the first year of Generation X. So yeah.
But I think it's more of right now.
I'm just old.
That type of thing is going to sell, and it's you've seen a lot of franchises being revived with that type of spin on it, because for studios it's easy to revive something that people already know, because you're going to capture the older audience that has a nostalgia to it, and you're going to capture their kids or grandkids who were brought up on it, and they're trying to keep these franchises going because they I mean, this is a weird thing to think about, but if you're not producing new media in Star Trek, eventually that copyright's going to expire and get released back into the world at large. Wow. And so they're incentivized to keep producing things with the Star Trek label, because then that just renews the copyright.
Isn't that why Fox did that Fantastic Four terrible movie that came out a few years ago?
they yeah, honestly it was. They had an agreement with Marvel that said they have to produce something with this intellectual property every so often, or they lose the rights to it, and it goes back to Marvel.
To make a movie.
Yeah. It's like, it does. Yeah, you produced one. What you produced was a turd blossom, but yeah, thank you.
Turd blossom. So. There is a market for what they're producing, and it could have been. Think about Star Trek in what was the second movie of the newer series called? Not Insurrection. That was the next gen movie.
Into Darkness.
Into Darkness. That literally could have been not a Star Trek movie with the same plot.
Right. Yeah.
And been just as well received.
Yeah.
But they have to keep making stuff with Star Trek in the title. I'm assuming the Scoob movie that came out for Scooby-Doo is we watched a review on it, which raised a good point, which is this is not Scooby-Doo, because Scooby-Doo is all about mystery solving. This was an adventure movie that happened to have Scooby-Doo characters in it. All these people are trying to produce these revivals of old things because that's how they renew their licensing. That's how they renew their copyright. That's how they keep, people like Bill from just taking over Star Trek and producing whatever he wants with it.
I like that. I think I would like where Bill would go with it. I do. But it's like, as far as you're concerned, you're the first generation millennial. How many people of the millennial generation understand what Star Trek is? Because you nailed it. You understand. I can tell that you actually feel about Star Trek the way an older fan would feel about Star Trek. But how many of these younger people understand that?
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on one point, which is I feel the way a fan of Star Trek feels about it. I'm not going to say it's an older fan, because I know people that are 22, 23, 24 years old and feel exactly the same way. I think it's just if you were...
That's kind of what I wanted to get. It's like...
But if you were brought... I think anybody that has watched the original series or watched... I mean, let's be honest, younger people were more likely to have been grown up seeing Next Generation than anything else.
That's true. Yeah.
I think anybody that grew up with that fell in love with it for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the market for Discovery, for newer things, it's a combination of people that are, look, it's got Star Trek in the title, of course I'm going to watch it, because there's that hope of it's going to capture some of what that is. And there's
the purpose of Star Trek the motion picture, you just described it right there. That was
but then there's also like people, it's like, well, I've seen the trailer, it looks good, I've never watched Star Trek, but what the hell? And then they get into it and they're like, hey, it's like you said, pew pew space opera, and that's their first foray into it. I'm okay with I'm not personally going to watch it because it's not what I want to see, but I like that's out there because it may cause more people that normally wouldn't have gone into the series to turn back then and watch
Well,
Deep Space
for
Nine or
example,
Next Generation.
Yeah. Go
I
ahead,
never
Katie.
grew up watching Star Trek at all or even really knew about it. And then the first time I saw any was one of the new movies. And
I think it was Into Darkness. We watched it.
Yeah, it was like an outdoor theater thing.
Yeah, I think we actually watched it with Bill and Linda at Midtown.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know
And
where.
Oh, that could be, yeah.
And it was interesting, and I had no idea what was going on, but I'm like, this is cool. And then
it got you into Star Trek.
And now Bill has shown me like older episodes,
Next gens.
So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was my first introduction to it.
What do you guys think about the series that are supposedly coming or that are in production, like the Section 31 series, and especially the new Captain Pike series that's coming out? That the Captain Pike series is going to be a different sort of streaming model in that it won't be the season-long arc that we're seeing now with Discovery or Picard. They're going to be individual standalone episodes, more along the lines of the original series.
About it because like they're stubbornly not going to go behind that paywall. I think they mentioned that Josh has a disdain for the CBS paywall.
Well, it's Star Trek is one of those things where
bearing in mind,
I just wonder if they threw it behind a paywall because they didn't think it could stand up well enough on its own during prime time. Because a lot of those primetime shows, CBS, NBC, ABC, those go to Hulu. And I'm like, I get it. Everybody wants exclusive content. Everybody wants an excuse to get you to go and pay for their service. And I'm mostly frustrated with the paywall in this case, not because I didn't want to pay for it, but because I think it reduces access to something that more people should have access to.
Yes,
I would agree with that. But I also have to wonder if the fact that it's behind a paywall is due to the exorbitant cost for each episode. I mean,
they are pricey.
They are paying a fortune per episode. It's amazing how much those shows cost.
So I'm going to... Cosmic Cat has a very low budget, which is apparent when you watch it.
But you can feel the love.
But that's the thing. You can work with a low budget and make beautiful art that people want to see.
But I think that's not often realized. Like, you're very wise to say that, but I don't think that everyone agrees, unfortunately.
Yeah.
A lot of people are all about like,
for those who don't know, is kind of it's by Bill Hedges out of Lyons, Nebraska. It's a
Cosmic Film Studio, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a YouTube.
We should put a link below.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Lost in Space inspired fan fiction, and you can, like Josh says, the budget, could be higher, but the love of every episode is.
Every episode I've watched has been, there is something about it where you can't help but have fun and enjoy it when you're watching it. And it's a labor of love, but it shows.
Yeah.
And I love my cats, but Bill Hedges is just, he adores his cats.
I don't think it's that, like,
he does.
There is some techniques in there that you just don't, and practical effects you don't see anymore. I love the styrofoam rocks. I love, the old dramatic TV shows where somebody's saying something like ominous and the light's showing on just this part of their face.
Right. Or the physical models that are suspended and moved by wires. And
and
it's well done.
Yes, very well done.
It's phenomenally well done. And but why I think that is that they have to have such a high budget for Discovery, because I don't think the story stands up well enough on its own.
Well, and I think audiences
so they're relying
today
on visual effects.
I think audiences today, though, are more sophisticated and they expect a higher level of special effects and set design, especially in the HD era that we're in. You know, back in the day when you had standard definition television, you could get away with a sloppy set. But nowadays, with HD TV, everything is so crystal clear that they've really got to put a lot of extra money into building those sets to make them look good.
Right?
I
What's
think
that? Focus on the story.
There's your Cosmic Film Studios.
Yay!
Offered.
And I can say, because I've worked with Bill on several of his episodes, that he's like one of the most dedicated, hardworking people I've met. And this isn't even his like career. He just retired and was like, I'm gonna make a series. And
I think he owns Lions, Nebraska too. Does he own the whole town?
No.
Tiny
parts of it, but it's like, but I feel like the old acting, it's like they didn't have the CGI, they didn't have the effects. What you had was a bunch of people. The director said, what you see is a terrible alien spaceship that's about to destroy the world. How would you look at that?
Yeah.
And it's like the acting, they acted. And it's like now people, it's like bad, evil spaceship. They show a bad, evil spaceship. And actors don't really have to act to convince us that it's there.
I agree with that, yeah. It's sad.
I don't know, though. I don't know that I agree with that, John, because I think today, in my mind, it would be much harder to be an actor today than it was back in the days of Star Trek, because those actors would be on a set that was fully designed because they didn't have a lot of green screen or special post visual effects teams that could create a whole environment. So the actors are there acting within an environment that's built, whereas today actors are standing in front of green screens. And how do you...
There's a green screen at Bill Hedges.
Yeah.
And how do you... more imagination, I think.
Yeah. How do you get yourself... to me, that would be incredibly hard to get yourself into a character and into the moment when you're just surrounded by these green screens and you can't see the actual environment in which your character is going to be living.
I love how Bill Hedges worked that VW van into the whole series.
I know. And he's actually got a live one, a real one, a large one to match.
I am smart enough to not have an opinion on this when I know that Katie has so much more experience. Katie, for you, do you think it would be more difficult to be in that type of environment, or do you think that, because you know a lot more about the history there too, and what may have been expected in the past versus what's expected today for actors?
Can you find a shot of Katie in a Cosmic Cat film?
I'll see if I can't find one.
Yeah, I'm sure there's photos somewhere.
Linda's going through them now, I think.
Gosh, if you go to like my Facebook, you can probably find them. Oh no, don't!
Yeah.
Not in front of her.
Oh my God, I got one. It's my favorite.
I got one. That's what Josh was talking about.
With the eyes lit up.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly the one I'm going for.
Oh my God. And then, oh my gosh.
Oh, this is perfect.
So funny. Okay, but anyway, to answer the question, I think for me personally as an actor, I treat everything with the same amount of respect, no matter like what kind of project it is or what the circumstances are or what the budget is. So like for me, if I'm just in front of a green screen versus with like all this big, beautiful budget and stuff, like I'm gonna approach it all the same, actually. It might take a little more imagination to visualize things, but I never let that distract me from the work that I have to do. So I don't personally feel like it's changed all that much. And if a story is really good, it will focus on the acting and not all the big fancy stuff. But
have you ever worked in a production that you knew was gonna just suck?
Yes.
Don't name any names, Katie.
Oh no, I never would. I never would.
But how does that feel? I mean, while you're doing it, it's like this is gonna just be awful. How does that work for you?
Sometimes you really got to decide, like, should I take a risk and speak up and be like, hey, I've got ideas to help, or should I just step back? I don't know. It's you just got to do your best, and knowing like, okay, I gave it everything I could. That's sometimes all you got.
Are you ever worried that your name's actually going on this piece of work that, you know, people
Yeah,
might...
I mean, I don't know. Like sometimes it's a bummer, but I'm never like, oh no, this is going to destroy my career. It's just like, that wasn't great, but oh well. I don't
Katie is a consummate professional.
I think we're going to need a lot of help in the remake, the sequel to The Return of James Bond.
I want that to happen so badly. Well, now you guys showed the trailer for that.
Oh God, yeah, I suppose we do.
No.
Here, I'll send you the YouTube link.
No.
Okay.
Won't be using it.
I don't even know what it is.
The movie that Linda and I made years ago.
The 1980.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh!
No.
I want to see it so bad.
We'll include a link to that.
You made James Bond fan fiction?
Yes.
No. Here, I'll message. I'll message it to you, Bill, since Linda doesn't want to share it.
All right.
No.
Poor Linda. You can turn your camera off if you're embarrassed.
You don't want your name associated with this fine piece of work, Linda?
No.
No?
We were just talking about this.
We were just talking about this.
But it's
I don't care. I'm not a consummate professional.
Oh no, we lost somebody. Where did he go?
Charles.
Charles.
Well, we're way over our time. Like way the hell over our time.
So there it is. So back in the 80s, Linda and I and a couple of our friends had our first video cameras, and so we filmed a James Bond-like adventure.
So choppy.
Amazing lens flare I've ever seen.
Oh, stick around. There's more.
Good.
We could teach J.J. Abrams a few things with our lens flares.
Yeah. He would be fascinated. He loves lens flares.
Yeah, so we filmed the whole. This is kind of the opening scene where James Bond.
He always had long walk-ons.
Yeah, this is walking to meet a secret agent.
And of course, in this time of video filming, there's no editing, right? So because it's all on tape.
Not without a lot of expensive equipment.
Well, plus every time you edited it was tape to tape, and every time you did it, there was a bit of degradation.
You degrade, and it's already degraded.
So there was a bit of editing there, but that's why it's probably not as clear as it is today.
That downtown? Oh.
Yeah, there's old downtown. I mean, heck, that mall now is gone. I mean, it's going to be just all the water and everything flat. There's my secret agent meeting, and then there's Linda in the trench coat behind me. She's a spy following me for the opposition, trying to get info for Mr.
Don't
Big.
give the whole plot away.
Yeah,
save some for the audience at home.
All right, that's good. All right,
so you can get an idea. So we'll include a link to the series. But we're talking about shooting a sequel where James Bond, me, is called out of retirement.
I would watch that.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So Josh and Katie have offered to participate in the show with us. So
I know for a fact more equipment than you had then.
Yeah, and we might see if we can get Bill Hedges maybe to help edit it together for us, because
we got connections now.
Yes, right. we have people we know in the biz.
All right, before we sign off, I'm going to share something that Katie can talk about.
Oh yeah,
get her.
Oh gosh. So yeah, Omaha's always like making cool stuff. And this is a GoFundMe for next summer. We are working on a pilot episode for Son of Ares, which is going to be I think it's so amazing. It's like a modern day Greek mythology story. So it's about, ancient Greek gods and goddesses and like kind of their children or their offspring, like living in modern day. And it's going to be really cool. I'm going to be one of the main roles. And then Maverick, the writer, is also local here and is putting the whole thing together. But of course, the more funding we get, the more we can do with it. So we're hoping to make the pilot really good and then offer it to different places.
So is this will be an animated series then? Or?
It's going to be like mostly live action, but whenever they go into like another world, logical world, then it'll be animated, which will be
I see. Huh,
awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there you go. Donate today. They got a GoFundMe page. Sons of Ares pilot episode.
Before we go, how's this show been for you, Audie?
He's been fascinating.
Informative.
So you're kind of like a lurker, just kind of hiding in the back.
Yeah, well,
I just want to be on the beach. I just want to be on the beach with him. Doesn't that look awesome?
I did this with Zach the other day.
Yeah.
Had my shirt off and some sunglasses on.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cute.
You weren't wearing the wife beater from episode 1, were you?
Thought about it.
Yeah.
Our first episode, Audie wore like this white T-shirt or something. I can't even remember what it was now.
It was a tank
with a
tank top. Yeah,
Carl Sagan on it or something like that.
Yeah, it
that's
was the
right.
only thing he had sci-fi.
The only sci-fi shirt he had at the time.
Anyway.
Sagan is my buddy, something.
My
But
homeboy.
Linda made me put a shirt on. So
for our fans out there who are now curious about episode 1, don't be. Do not go. It is
No. Don't say that. You can now go see episode 1. We call them the classic episodes.
Galactic Driftwood Classic. I never
Aw.
thought I'd say that.
Just for that, I want you to watch it again and give me a report next.
I will do that.
All right.
Thank you
All right.
for having us.
Well,
Yeah,
you're welcome.
thank
Thank you
you.
guys for jumping on today and joining us for this show. It was awesome. We always love having you guys on the show. A lot of good discussion today. So thanks.
Glad to be back.
Yep. We'll have to do this again sometime soon. And stay tuned for updates on the remake of James Bond. So
No.
Yes.
No.
all right. Well, thank you all. Be sure to check us out. GalacticDriftwood.space is our homepage. You can find links to both the video version of the show as well as audio versions if you want to listen to us on the go while you're maybe jogging around town during the COVID crisis. And we'll be back again in 2 weeks with another exciting show, which we'll figure that out, won't we? All right. Well, thank you all. And thanks to the guests and everybody. So we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.